Yo, what's going on, guys? Crispy Flakes here. Welcome to Extra Crispy. So I really want to start off by congratulating the Chicago Bulls fans out there, man. I know this is a day you have been waiting for a very long time. And that is Gar Forman being fired as the GM of the Chicago Bulls, and of course John Paxson, moving down the organization to a different role and stuff like that, right, man? So yeah, I know the past few seasons, really going pretty far back, has not been great for the Chicago Bulls. I know you guys are definitely a winning cultured franchise. Of course, your standards are to Michael Jordan, right? Like, you are just used to the Michael Jordan days and just so much success that comes with having a great basketball player. And I think we can all, it's safe to say that over the past 10, 20 years or so, the Chicago Bulls have been, they've had their seasons where things were looking pretty good, and then all of a sudden, something happens, like your superstar MVP point guard goes down with horrific injuries, or, the GM of your team trades away your best player, man, your franchise player, and Jimmy Butler, all sorts of stuff like that, right, man? Just stuff where it's like, you would think under the right circumstances, the Chicago Bulls, assuming Derrick Rose would have stayed healthy, this team would have had some great success. We all know for a fact, that's at least one championship from a prime, non-injured Derrick Rose. But, you can't really control the bad things that happen. They happen to every single franchise. But what you can control is how you handle it going forward and having a plan in play. And really, with Gar Forman, that just never really happened, right, guys? He just never, you just never really had a sense that he had a grasp of what he was doing out there. So I think we gotta start from the beginning to kind of like consider and really talk about, where this franchise started and kind of what led up to things at this point. So, John Paxson was the GM for quite a few years and everything like that. And, really he had this tough task of building a nice competitive team post the Michael Jordan era, past an era where just expectations were at an all-time high to go out there and get another great player. And I will say, some of those teams were actually pretty decent. They did a pretty good job drafting some players out there. Kirk Heinrich was, of course, a really solid point guard they took a chance on, and, he was never the best point guard in the league, but I always respected Kirk Heinrich. I always thought he played tough out there, and he was just like a good point guard to have, right, man? Like, he definitely filled that Chicago grit and grind mentality. I thought Scott Skiles was a fine coach. I don't really have too much to praise about him. He was a decent coach, right? He was a decent coach. Of course, they had some nice draft picks. Not really any like big time home run draft picks. But Paxson was able to get Ben Gordon, who was really solid. I still think they really should have fought to get him from going to the Detroit Pistons, because he was coming off a really good playoff series and really playing some top basketball. Went to the Pistons, at that point really fell off. But who knows, maybe he would have fell off also with the Bulls. You don't really know. But it just seemed like that team, Ben Gordon was really shining with that squad, right? Luol Deng, one of my favorite players in the NBA. He was just a beacon of consistency, somebody that would go out there, play hard, play all damn 48 minutes, play great defense. Yeah, he was a great draft pick. I liked Andre Nocioni a lot. He was kind of a, kind of like a player before his time. I really think a guy like Nocioni would have been really nice in today's NBA, but even him, like, he was a good, solid player. And, then some bad choices kind of started coming along the way. One of them was definitely signing Ben Wallace. I mean, Ben Wallace was great for the Detroit Pistons, but, Ben was getting to the point where he was getting up there a little bit of age, and Big Ben was pretty much solely athletic based. Like, once Ben Wallace loses his athleticism, there's not much more he's going to be able to do for you. He's not going to give you any offense or anything like that. And a lot of what he did, being an undersized center at the time, at 6'8", 6'9", was because of his athleticism, his ability to get up and block shots and get rebounds. So, at that point, Ben Wallace, it just didn't really work out with him in the Chicago Bulls, as opposed to Ben Gordon didn't really work out with the Detroit Pistons, right? And then really a big shamble right here would be they did trade away LaMarcus Aldridge for Tyrese Thomas. Now, I will say, Tyrese Thomas, I actually did like him a lot out of college. He was really athletic-based, had a decent mid-range shot. Like, I realistically thought Tyrese Thomas could have been like an Amari Stoudemire, so I could see where he would have came off as like fool's gold. But as we all know, Tyrese Thomas is not in the league, and LaMarcus Aldridge is still an all-star caliber player. So it's like, his great years was, of course, on the Portland Trail Blazers, but you like to think, LaMarcus on the Bulls, eventually playing with like a Derrick Rose. Maybe you replace LaMarcus with Carlos Boozer, and you put him alongside Joakim Noah. That right there is a freaking godly squad. If you ask me, man, like, that team would have done some work out there. So yeah, then of course, like I said, drafting Derrick Rose was a big time thing for them to do. I mean, what happened to Derrick Rose is nobody's fault. It's a horrible situation. And like I said, this man never got injured. We probably not even having this conversation because, Derrick Rose was supposed to be leading the Chicago Bulls into the promised land for the next 10, 15 years. Like, think about this. D Rose right now, he is younger than Steph Curry. Like, Derrick Rose, if he never got injured, would still be playing his prime basketball probably for the Chicago Bulls, right? And then, of course, I liked Joakim Noah a lot. I thought he was a great draft pick. He had some really good years for you guys out there. Carlos Boozer, I'm not a big Boozer fan. Like, I respect what he did in the Utah Jazz, but him and Joakim Noah just always kind of seemed like a weird duo. I don't know. I just wasn't a big fan of Carlos Boozer all that much. But yeah, man, and then some other things start happening, of course. So eventually, Derrick Rose tears his ACL. Horrible, horrendous. But, I will praise them in this regard that they did take a few chances on some players. Jimmy Butler and Taj Gibson. Both guys that, were slept on in the draft, especially Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler has turned to be one of the best players in the NBA, right? So that was great. The hiring Tom Thibodeau, he was cool, man. He was a great grit and grind coach out there. You can definitely argue that he overplayed his players a lot, which might have led to Derrick Rose. I probably did actually. Derrick Rose getting injured a lot. But at the same time, Derrick Rose just some of the, Derrick Rose had some unfundamentally sounded things to his game that kind of resulted into it. A big thing is how Derrick Rose typically landed off those athletic plays and stuff like that. But even so, like Tom Thibodeau plus the combination of Derrick Rose doing that probably ultimately led to the injury, right? So yeah, eventually John Paxson does back out. He's just like, he's like, I need to chill a little bit, man. So takes, a smaller role within the organization, and Gar takes over, man. Gar takes over. So I will say, one of the biggest mysteries to me, and it has to come down to the front office, it has to come down to players just not liking the front office, was their inability to go out there and sign a big name free agent. Like, I was just waiting every single year for some sort of superstar player to be like, hey, I want to play Jimmy Butler. I want to play with, Derrick Rose. I want to play with Joakim Noah. And it just never really happened. Like, I know obviously big guys that were in play were LeBron James or Carmelo Anthony. Now, I did hear that LeBron actually wanted to play in Chicago, but the issue was that they were unable to work a way out to also get Chris Bosh on the team. Of course, Dwayne Wade would have joined also. So yeah, financially, I understand that did not really make much sense. But then, of course, like Carmelo Anthony, he decided to go to the New York Knicks, or stay with the Knicks, I should say, and he decided to choose the bag over really rings and success and stuff like that, because I do think Carmelo Anthony could have done some nice things for the Chicago Bulls, and really the only big sign I can really think of is getting Dwayne Wade, but even that did not really feel like a part of the plan. It just it more so felt like a thing for like Dwayne Wade's legacy, because at that point Dwayne Wade, the Heatles were over with, and D Wade was just kind of like coming out of his prime a bit. Like, he was out of his prime. He definitely wasn't as good as he once was. And him and Jimmy Butler, of course, they had big-time chemistry issues with some of the younger players on the team. There was always a back and forth that always kind of seemed like it was, the young guys against the old guys, and just chemistry issues from there. Just absolutely horrible, man. And ultimately, 2017, they traded away Jimmy Butler in a trade that, they definitely won, getting Lauri Markkanen out of it, the draft pick for him, of course, getting Zach LaVine, who has become one of the best shooting guards in the NBA. A lot of people hate on Zach LaVine. I love his game. I love that he's extremely athletic, and not only does he use this combination of athleticism getting to the basket, but also he uses it really just score the basketball at will. Like, this man's not just an athletic player. He does everything, from the perimeter and everything like that too, right, man? So yeah, that's while that was cool, I feel like people never really got the sense that Lauri and Zach LaVine and now Kobe White was going to really lead this team anywhere. It's still coming down to, okay, you have the pieces, and a lot of people are saying, like, they should trade Lauri Markkanen, and if things don't change, then he's going to get traded. I don't think that should be the case. I do like Zach LaVine. I do like Markkanen. I like Wendell Carter. I like Kobe White. But what I didn't like was the front office. I felt like big-name players never wanted to play for these guys. So now you're in a situation where you have an opportunity to reconstruct the entire front office. Jim Boylan needs to get fired. That was another big time mistake. Like, Jim Boylan is like the least player coach I've ever seen. It just seems like just nobody likes this guy, and it's just absolutely horrendous. But, by getting that front office, it's like you guys have been rebuilding for a few years now. Like, you have been in the process of the rebuild. You got some really nice pieces. So hopefully by getting, I forgot the dude's name, is the dude out of Denver that they all hired, by getting him, he's obviously a really smart guy. He went out there and got Jokic, and ultimately he did trade away Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, so that's not great. But regardless, he's had some really nice pickups in the draft, right? He's obviously a smart player. In a tough Western Conference, he's put together a really nice competitive team, right? So hopefully just by that logic, you have the pieces in play. This guy continues to build on the foundation you guys already have. And 2021 is coming up very quickly. And, with Otto Porter coming off the books, Thaddeus Young, you guys are going to have a lot of money to work with. So it's going to come down to what it's come down to all along, and that is the Chicago Bulls. They need to get a star. They are a big market team, and I think they were just a big market team with poor management, as what you want to equate to the New York Knicks. Now, they've obviously done a better job in years than the New York Knicks have. I mean, you look at those two rosters, and which one are you taking? Obviously, the Chicago Bulls. So I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting for you guys. It's going to be very interesting, and I really want to talk about this today, just because I know it's probably a good feeling. It's a good feeling when you just have hope, at least, right? Like, we don't normally know. Like, this new GM very well could just not be great, and maybe it's 10 or 20 years of purgatory. You don't really know. Or maybe he's amazing, and you go out there and things work out completely perfectly, and you win some championships. It's like nobody really can predict the future to that stuff. Really, what it comes down to is just passion, hope, a little bit of luck. Let's be honest, man. It's always a little bit of luck, too. And just getting excited about basketball again. I think the Chicago Bulls are going to be exciting. I think the fans are going to be excited again. And I really hope they can go out there and get themselves another star. Or a star eventually, I should say. Not saying Zach LaVine's not a star. I just don't see him as a number one option. I love him as a number 2 or number 3. They just need that next guy. They have some good things going on there. So, yeah, be patient. Know that this GM's not going to be able to fix things overnight. This stuff does take time. And, yeah, just hope for the best, guys. That's all I got. Peace out.